No, I'm not worried at all. I rely on God, Allah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Life Haqq podcast. And we have a special guest with us today. First time joining the podcast, we have with us the Muslim metaphysician, Brother Jake. Welcome to the podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yes, and we appreciate you. I know it's a late night. You've been traveling.
Yeah.
We've been having you on this crazy whirlwind tour, another city.
Yeah.
And I hope it hasn't been too cold for you.
No, it's been fine, man. Actually, the weather they've been telling me has been kind of mild. It's not like 40 below.
yeah. Jersey gets a little bit of cold,
it does.
Right?
Yeah, not this type of cold.
Yeah.
I mean, how it is now would be like the coldest it gets, pretty much.
Okay.
So
we go down like right now.
You guys
like
go way down.
So right now it's like -6 degrees. So you guys usually go by Fahrenheit, right? But we go by Celsius. And just if you times this by 5, no, if you times this by 7, okay. So if you go -42, -45, that's how it was like a month or two ago.
Yeah, we don't.
And you get stretches of that, and then black ice where it's a skating rink on the,
that's crazy.
on the highway. So yeah, it does get a little bit rough out here.
Yeah,
so,
we don't go that low.
Yeah. So I'm glad we were able to get you here while the weather was a little bit better, tolerable, because it can be quite exhausting. What's your impression first time here in Canada?
Yeah, it's my first time. I've been enjoying it. Mashallah, the Muslim communities that I've been to thus far seem very strong and organized. And I've been impressed, especially with the amount of youth that have come. Like the one in Fort McMurray, a lot of young people were there, subhanAllah. Even today, there was a pretty good amount of young people here in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So it's been enjoyable. It's been intense traveling, but it's been enjoyable.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
How's your community in Jersey like?
Where I live, there's not really any community. And the closest one that I'm kind of attached to is about 40 minutes away from where I live.
That's pretty far.
So it's a bit, it's a bit difficult.
So you're kind of isolated,
Currently where I live now, it's kind of isolated because I live near the beach.
Okay.
So it's mostly just rich people.
Oh, okay.
There's not many Muslims around. There's only one halal restaurant within like 30 miles.
Yeah.
So it's a bit difficult, Yeah.
So that's actually, in a way, it's also a beautiful sign that in a place where very little Muslims, you could have somebody not only accept Islam but become very active in the Dawah.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So, like your background, what's your background? Because your name kind of sounds like you're Italian.
Yeah. So my last name is Brancatella.
Yeah.
My father is Italian, so he's 100% Italian. Both of his parents immigrated from Italy.
Yeah.
And my mother is mostly Irish and a little bit of German. So I'm mostly Italian and Irish and a little bit of German.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone back to any of those
I've
places?
been to Ireland. I have not been to Italy yet, so that's on my list. I want to go back there.
I heard Ireland has a pretty strong Muslim population there.
I didn't really interact with the Muslims when I went because I was on a tour bus with my family.
Okay.
My mom and my brother, and we were just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But I have met a few Irish Muslims, but not in Ireland.
Okay.
And but that's good to hear.
Yeah. And how has it been with your family? Like, the Dawah with them, and are they interested in Islam? I don't know. Maybe are they?
Not really. My entire family's Roman Catholic. They've been. I was raised Roman Catholic. My entire family's Roman Catholic, still is.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just kind of, nominally Roman Catholic. They're not really practicing and don't really care too much about it. my mom actually has gotten more religious as she's gotten older. And so she goes to church every Sunday. But in terms of, and I was actually mentioning this earlier during the talk at the masjid, is, you know, people were asking me, well, how do you actually give dawah to your family? My mom is like really tough. So she, you know, in the beginning, she was really kind of hard on me. And she softened up a little bit as because I've been Muslim now for like 10 years. Yeah. But I was saying actually earlier, she said to me last year, she said, Jake, I think you're still in a phase. And I was like, Mom, it's been like 10 years. I'm not in a phase. I'm married to a Muslim woman. You know, I've been married for like 2 years now. Yeah. So she's actually gotten, since I've been married, alhamdulillah, she's actually gotten a little better. Like sometimes when we have dinner, she brought like halal meat for us. Okay, nice. You know, like before she would never do that when I was like 10 years ago. Yeah. Forget it. Like that would never happen. So it's been tough. Like a lot of them are just either not interested at all or just opposed to it. Yeah. And so I try to just give dawah by my actions, try to be a good son or a good brother or, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, inshallah, hopefully Allah will guide them, you know. Inshallah. But it is difficult, you know, because my mom, for example, she knows what I do, give dawah online. She, you know, she's heard or seen some of my discussions. And, so she doesn't want any part of a discussion with me, you know, because I gave this example in the mosque actually, that, you know, I try to give like little questions to make her think or my family members think. Like I just said to Mom, you know, do you believe Jesus is God? And she said, no, I believe he's the son of God. He's not God. And she's Catholic, so I don't know how much you know about Catholics, but they believe in the Trinity. They believe that Jesus is God. So I said, you know, Mom, you've been telling me you've been saying the Hail Mary prayer all the time for me, over and over and over again. You say the Hail Mary prayer. You've been praying for me, right? Every day. And she said, yeah, that's right. So I started reciting the Hail Mary prayer, and it goes like this. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God. And I stopped there and I said, do you see in the prayer that you're saying for me all the time, you say, Holy Mary, Mother of God. Mary, Mother of God. Who's she the mother of? Jesus. So what does that mean? Yeah, you're saying that Jesus is God and Mary is the mother of God. And then she stopped and she said, oh, you know what? Jesus is God. I said, wow, subhanAllah, just 5 minutes ago, you told me he wasn't God. He was the son of God. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. And I didn't have that dramatic of a reaction, but, you know, I'm saying to myself, how do you get through in a situation like that where the person, it's almost like a blind following, but they don't even realize what they're doing or saying. You see what I mean?
So she probably views you as like, you know, like she looks at you as her son. Yeah. You know, she's seen you do all the bad stuff. Oh, yeah. And all of a sudden you're on this, you know, self-righteous, like in her, it could be in her mind that, okay, he's becoming like this thing. Yeah. But maybe that's why she said it's a phase or whatever. Yeah. But you have children yet?
Not yet. Nope.
That could be a key. Soften them up more.
Yeah, inshallah.
That's another key, my friend. You know, when you have children, they soften up big time.
Yeah, because you know what it is? It's like she's never been really around other Muslims. Yeah. So it's like she just viewed it as her son being just a rebellious, you know, rebellious son again, is just going off the rails and doing what he's doing. Because I mean, let's be honest, I was a rebellious kid. Yeah. Like I was a tough kid growing up, and my parents divorced when I was young, and I had 2 brothers, so my mom was raising 3 boys, and we were bad. Like, it wasn't easy, we kind of tortured her, and, subhanAllah. So she probably viewed it like that, and also like, as some kind of just weird other thing that he's getting into. And so when I got married, obviously my mom never said this, but this is just my psychoanalyzing of the situation, that, she's now talking to another Muslim and realizing it's a normal person. Like, it's not like what you hear on Fox News, or I don't want to get too political, but it's not what you hear sometimes in Western media. Like, Muslims are real normal people. They go to work, and so I think that had an effect. And children, if that happens, inshallah, hopefully that'll even be more softening up.
That'll be very powerful.
Inshallah.
Things you would be surprised. I know people who've accepted Islam, they've been trying to get their parents to do stuff, maybe come to the masjid or take part in things. They could say 1,000 times, their kid says it once. Okay, sure. Okay, well, I'll come with you to masjid. Right?
Yeah.
So it's an emotion. There's a huge emotional component to it. And I've been asked this as well. Like, I think that's a common thing. Even people who are Muslim, right? Like, sometimes you come up in a Muslim family, it's not really practicing. The kids become a little bit more practicing. So the analogy I give is that, if we look at Islam as the medicine, as the cure, the more frequent dosage you take less. You have smaller doses.
Right.
So if I'm going to see you once at we were at a Dawah booth, I'm going to give you the full dose. I'm going to tell you about akhirah, because I may not see you again. Right? So I'm going to give you the full spectrum. So I'm going to give you the full bolus of medicine right then and there. But if I'm seeing you on a regular basis, I'm just going to get a little dose. Little dose. I don't have to, give you the full dosage and the whole thing right now. You know what I mean? So But it is a common challenge, and to see like how you're dealing with that, and especially when you go through, those phases in life, right? Like when you were, even myself, right? When you have these things, and then when you're coming back to the Deen, they're kind of, and you know what I mean? It's like, here's this kid.
It's
you know
like
what
you're
I mean?
the same guy who did X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, who are you?
Exactly.
So, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you yearn to be like part of a Muslim community? Like to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm actually, considering relocating.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot of options. I'm kind of like at a crossroads, because before I have kids, I want to make sure that I'm established and that I'm bringing them up in the right environment. So a couple things on the table, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. Yeah.
Still in the U.S., or you think you want to?
I don't know. I might make hijrah, bro.
Yeah.
My wife is from Morocco.
Okay.
So could possibly move out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure though.
How is Morocco? How's the? Because from what I hear, it's like a mixed bag, right? Like you have.
I like it a lot. Yeah. I like it a lot. Yeah. I mean, her whole family's over there. I like the food. I like the culture.
Yeah.
The people, and obviously, there's no like utopia for Islam right now. The Muslim countries, say whatever you want, but they're not 100% doing what they're supposed to be doing. So.
And a lot of people find that out. When they do make hijrah. It's not everything that they thought it would be. Definitely, you have if you have an environment that, if you're looking for something and you have more of it, it's good, right? But vice versa, like you have people who come from some of those countries and they get used to, hey, we're Muslim, take it for granted, it's cultural, and then when they come here, they see like a clear demarcation between kufr and iman. So then they kind of really re-establish themselves in the religion, they kind of re-establish that identity, right? So sometimes that can happen as well, but I think the main thing is that people are searching. There are a lot of families, they're searching like, what can I do, right? Where can I establish myself where the ecosystem around me is going to facilitate like righteousness.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like in Morocco, okay, like of course it's not perfect, but you hear the adhan 5 times a day.
Yes.
You know, there's a mosque on every corner, right? You can walk outside, boom, you're at the mosque.
Yeah.
Fridays, you know, they give you plenty of time to go to Jummah. You know, it's you know, it still has Islam there. You know what I mean? In a sense that I don't really experience currently where I'm at. I'm not saying there are probably other places in the U.S. that with that type of environment, but I don't know. You know, I have to think about it more.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
No, but you're obviously in a almost even within the U.S. You know, really deprived of even a Muslim community. Like, you know, you're saying 40 minutes is the closest one, right?
Yeah, so, basically. Yeah.
No. You know, one of the things that I noticed, I actually wanted to ask you about this because I always see you with the red hat.
Yeah.
You know,
I was gonna wear the red one today, actually, because I have a red hat that's just like this. But I wore the black one. So it's funny you mention that.
Yeah. So where did the idea of the red hat come from?
Well, so here's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Red is my favorite color, even though I'm actually colorblind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually red-green colorblind, but for some reason, red has always been my favorite color.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just like that. I just like red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't get it wrong, because I know people see me on there and they got the white letters and like, this guy's a Trump supporter.
That's from afar, right? Like, that's the impression.
He's a Trumper.
Yeah. Is he a subtle, like, undercover, you know what I mean?
I know, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it wasn't, to be honest.
Yeah.
At that point, it wasn't even intentional. And then when I started wearing the hat on the live streams, people were like, dude, you look like you're wearing a Trump hat. And I'm like, oh, damn. But then I was like, actually, it's kind of catchy because people think I'm wearing a Trump hat. And then they read it and they're like, oh, what does it actually say?
Yeah, it's like it tracks people's attention.
Exactly. Right? So then I just went with it. I'm like, whatever. I'm just wearing it, you know?
Yeah.
And then, I just kept going with it, bro. So I've been wearing it for like, I don't know, a year or two now.
Yeah. No, it's like, it's kind of been iconic with your, you know, look, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's like people see, the dude with the white hat, the red hat, and okay.
Yeah, because it's very unique. Not like besides like the whole Trump world, right? you have it's the only representative in the Muslim world, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something that sticks out, and people, you know, because people on YouTube when they watch videos and like different personalities and stuff, that's how they like, you know, they make that connection. Oh, that's the guy from that stream. He's wearing a red hat. No, we saw him over here. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's Jake. Boom! Now all of a sudden they know who he is. You know. So yeah, it's, you know, kind of marketing as well. You know? Yeah.
Well, that's good. From what you told me, you know, becoming Muslim in an area, not too many, you know, resources. Then you went through a period of like, you know, being a Quranist. And you know, obviously coming Ahlul Sunnah, and I'm sure you're you're always continuing to evolve, right? Like we all are, right? We're all students, and we should be, you know, always trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So like a person who's now, you know, alhamdulillah, even this past week, we have a lot of new people who've come to Islam.
Yeah, right? Alhamdulillah, you know what I mean?
So what advice would you give of a person who's, you know, made like, you know, learn things, maybe you made mistakes, things that you really appreciated, you've had those experiences. What advice could you give to like a new Muslim so they could kind of save themselves from going through maybe some of the grief you may have had to go through?
Yeah, so I mean, and it's something that obviously I still haven't fully done myself. I think being tied to a particular community is very important, especially when you're a new Muslim, because you're going to have questions. You may even have some doubts, and you need, in my opinion, you really need that community to ground you, maybe a teacher or two at the local mosque, and because your lifestyle, for the most part, many people in the West, if they became a Muslim and they're like in their 20s or something, your lifestyle is probably going to change, right? You know, it's like no more alcohol and pork and all. So you're gonna have a different lifestyle, and obviously it's better to be around other people who can understand that and are doing similar things as you are. So I think it's very important, and this is one of the things actually that led me into being a chronist, is that I didn't actually have that foundation in terms of community. I wasn't going to the mosque or doing any of that. So I think being a part of a local community is extremely important. That's number one. Number two, and one of my teachers told me this, and I agree with him, is that, you know, some people, when they come into the Deen, when they first become a Muslim, they're like so zealous, like souped up. And so there's so much to learn, like knowledge in general, but even within the Deen is so vast that people sometimes get overwhelmed. They're like, oh, I need to learn this, I need to learn that, I need to learn this. Just chill out, take it slow, like it's baby steps. Learn the Fatiha, then learn this. You know, just take your time. Don't beat yourself up too much. You don't need to be like, boom, like performing perfect wudu day one, and then like your salah is like all perfect from day one. No, you can take several months of time of developing, as long as you have the intention, right? And you're doing your best to try to learn some of these things. Don't overwhelm yourself, because what I notice is some new converts, like they get burnt out. It's like in the beginning to have that wave, and then when it kind of slows down and you're just another guy at the mosque or something like that, like, this is too much. And I don't have enough time to learn it. I've got family, I've got friends, I've got a job full time. How am I going to learn all this stuff? Just, you know, sort of take it easy, because I see that a lot of people get overwhelmed with that. So that's another thing. And also, Dawah specifically. In my opinion, a new convert should not really be thrusting themselves into Dawah, especially with how the Dawah scene is now, is so much online. And you're dealing with all these different shubuhat, all these different doubts and everything. You're not ready for that at that stage. You need to ground yourself in the basics of the Deen. You know, learn some basic creed, fiqh, this kind of stuff before you start going into debating people and all this kind of stuff. Because what winds up happening sometimes is unintentionally you make Islam look bad, because you're out there, but you don't even have, you just like a baby brand new into the Deen. You're not really, with all due respect, equipped for it. And even me, the things that I think I am, if I can say, relatively equipped to discuss, I stick to that. I stay in my lane. Like, I don't go on my YouTube channel coming out with fatwa. Like, I'm not a, you know, a scholar of fiqh. So people need to just kind of take it easy, because, and with Dawah also, it's not only that, like, about, you know, making yourself or the Deen look bad. So you don't want to do that, obviously. But it's also the fact that you should be, instead of like, of course, everybody at a certain point, you have an obligation to do Dawah. Don't get me wrong. But you have an obligation to understand the fundamentals of the Deen. Like, you need to know that before you start really sharing the religion with other people. So, those are some key points. I mean, so yeah, stay out of Dawah really in the beginning. Get grounded in the fundamentals. Get attached to a community, a good Muslim community. Hang around other like-minded people. And I think those are really the keys to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's very sound advice. I remember one brother when we were coming up, and he was Ismaili, and so he reverted, he accepted Islam, but he went hardcore, man. Like, he wanted to learn everything, and he kind of got connected with like some very hardcore, if you want to call them Salafi brothers, you know what I mean? And some of the issues that he overemphasized or over focusing on just became like a fitna for himself. And at the same time, he was having problems at home because there was immense pressure. He was kicked out of his house, and having to deal with not having that necessarily maybe that community support.
Right.
And so because he went too hard in the paint, with like certain issues that like you need to have a good foundation to understand them, like maybe say abrogated verses and things like that, without understanding like the basics, like the usul al-tafsir, for example, right? Yeah. And it just became that he just then went back. Like he was very hardcore for a while, like going dawah, doing this, masajid all the time, everything. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I remember a few years later, I saw him, and he's like, my parents took me back. I'm Ismaili again. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
like hardcore Salafi and Ismaili are like polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly, right. And you know what's interesting too, a phenomenon that I saw with some of these people, like they went from a group of them went from like a hardcore Salafi to hardcore Sufi, if you can imagine.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that, the best way I could describe what you're saying is that you need to have a proper Islamic ecosystem. You know what I mean? You need to have like emotional connections with good Muslims. You need to have good intellectual connections so you can develop intellectually. You know what I mean? So you need to have those like positive relationships that foster like healthy growth, right?
Exactly.
And if you have significant components missing from there, then that really affects the growth of a person, or they may not grow at all, right?
Exactly.
The tree will die.
Exactly.
So
subhanallah. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, and the other thing is like what I was saying, sometimes you have the good intent, like you want to learn all this stuff, which is good. I'm not saying people shouldn't try to learn it. But what my experience is, sometimes they get burnt out. It's like they dive into it and then they're like, oh, this is really deep. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to go that deep. And then they get scared and they just go all the way back outside the deen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and they kind of forget the fundamental purpose of ilm.
Yeah.
The fundamental purpose of ilm is amal, is to practice it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're just spending like all this time, okay, is it just a trivial pursuit?
Yeah.
Or is that getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because, the scholars of Aqidah, they've said that, the beautiful thing about Islam, the theoretical is also practical. Because it brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas like, the pursuit of maybe other types of knowledge, the theoretical doesn't really change the condition of your heart or elicit some type of different part of your character to change.
Right. Yeah, subhanallah.
Subhanallah. It's I think for new Muslims, I see a lot of parallel with new Muslims and people who were even born in many Muslim families if they don't have that foundation. A lot of Muslim families, it's like when you're giving dawah to them, or like youth, it's like it's as if you're almost giving dawah to either a new Muslim or like someone who isn't Muslim, almost like, you know what I mean? You're kind of like trying to convince them of those things. Have you had like Muslims come up to you and say, hey, like, you basically, I was a Muslim, but you kind of brought me back into Islam, like really believe in it?
Yeah. I've had Muslims come up to me, and it's funny because I was actually telling our friend offline. I said that my main dawah is actually to Muslims, and there are many reasons for that, but one of them is from a practical standpoint is that I see all the other like major groups, like Christianity's on the decline, like all these other major groups are on the decline, except maybe atheism and secularism is on the rise. So that's like the main threat, I think. But all these other groups are on the decline and Islam is on the rise, right? It's got a certain trajectory. So if we keep those who are already Muslim, boom, we're going to be on the top, like in terms of population.
Yes.
We don't even so my dawah, and some people, maybe not like this or maybe but if you really understand what I'm trying to say, if we keep Muslims Muslim, we're going to rise up further up to the top. And then what I say is that if any non-believer watches my material or sees me in a debate or hears me talk and likes something that I say, whatever, and becomes Muslim because of that, like Christian, atheist, Hindu, whatever, that's just icing on the cake for me. That's just like an added bonus. You see? Yeah. So that's my mentality. I'm trying to empower other Muslims to show them that Islam is a superior way of life. It's a superior religion, intellectually, spiritually, anything. It's just superior. And atheism, it's not going to bring you anything. Christianity, and these are the main things. Like on my YouTube channel, I mainly focus on Christianity. Then another YouTube channel that I'm a part of, we mainly focus on atheism. So I try to show that these positions, with all due respect, are basically bankrupt, and Islam is the truth and the way of life. And it's many times for, as I said, for Muslims, so they can see, look, we actually have a strong intellectual tradition and foundation, and spiritually as well, and we don't need to go looking at atheism or Christianity. And look, Jake, I debate some top Christian scholars. Yeah. Right? And you can see, judge for yourself. Yeah. Oh, look, he's doing a good job. And see, because a lot of Muslims need that boost. They need that confidence. Yes. So this is about empowering other Muslims and instilling that confidence in them, not just for the sake of it, like sophistry, but at the same time doing it while presenting good material, intellectual content. So that's my main goal. I can appreciate that. And then at the same time, I've had non-Muslims message me, email me saying, Jake, I became a Muslim because of your stuff. And mashallah, alhamdulillah. Like, I'll give you an example. Actually, today it was the topic that I spoke about today in the masjid was about salvation. So it's a big topic. And it's like, I got an hour to talk about it. And I'm doing it from Christianity and Islam. It's like, whoa, that's a lot to get in an hour. So I try my best. And it's important to me because I come from a Christian background. And what's a bigger topic than salvation? It's like, where are you going to spend your eternity? You know what I mean? So I started talking about it. And actually, I don't know, maybe you see it later, but I started to get a little bit emotional, but then I kind of like held myself back because I was recalling when I first started reading the Quran was with the wrong intent. It was actually to refute my friend. That's a whole nother story. But the point I was getting to is that after the lecture, a brother came up to me and he's like, I'm a revert. I used to be a Christian. And my mother also used to be a Christian, and she became a Muslim too with me. I don't know, he didn't say the exact time factor, but sometime after maybe. And he was like, bro, when you were talking, I could relate to everything you were saying. He's like, I couldn't control it. You made me cry. Like, I think he got up and he walked out and he came back and he was like, I really appreciated that. So he was already a Muslim, but I'm saying that type of an effect that I had in the mosque in a 1 hour lecture, just me doing that, that makes it worth it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and he wasn't somebody, I don't want to misconstrue, that was coming back to the Deen. He's already in the Deen. He's in the mosque, alhamdulillah. Yes. He's coming there. He's a part of the community. But even that, just for him to get a benefit out of that talk to that extent, that's, for me, that's absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? So,
well, especially the environment we live in, 24/7. You're getting opposite messaging. You know what I mean? And that can have a cumulative effect. Even people who come to the masjid every day, even people who go to Jum'ah, you know what I mean? Sometimes a lot of these people, their hearts are on the fence. And for us to actually even really practice our Deen, we actually need to do it at a more comprehensive level. Right. You know what I mean? Many Muslims, frankly speaking, who even come to the masjid, even come to halaqat, a big percentage of them don't even pray 5 times a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've actually taken surveys. People who have come to an Islamic program, meaning you're taking a survey from a group of people who are already engaged in some shape, way, or form. Right? And they're struggling to pray 5 times a day. One of the most fundamental, things of our deen, right?
Exactly.
So, my thought has always been, when I see, unfortunately, people criticize each other in the Dawah, too much. I think sometimes people don't look at the whole picture. You know what I mean? Because you may have somebody who gives Dawah in one kind of stream or in one mode, and then they say this is like the only way to do it, right? But as long as you're within the realm of Quran and Sunnah, like I say to myself, there's like, for example, there's Islamic speakers and du'at that are, very popular, and they're very non-controversial, and they say a lot of motivational things and a lot of soft heart softeners and things like that. Like they focus on that. I'm like, that's fine, but you need people out there that put the fear in the heart of the antagonists. You understand what I'm saying? You need, like, in the battlefield, like not everyone, like, everyone has a different position. Right? I'm like, without naming names, right? And like, and even we can include you in some of the way, like, with your debates and things like that. You need people out there that, like, that antagonist Christian or that antagonist atheist is going to think twice. Because with the people who are super nice, they're like, I can say whatever. This guy's not going to really come out. I can say whatever I want to this person.
Exactly.
He's just going to be like very nice and smiling and, but there's some, I'm like, you need these people out there. Like, like you need people like Abu Dujana out on the battlefield, right? That people, like, they see his scarf and they're like, they see his red, just like your red hat, right? And they're like, okay, maybe not today, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, like, so that's why I appreciate, as long as it's within the realm of the Quran and the Sunnah, right? We need people, I would say, yes, generally speaking, people should learn, like, they should focus and learn and get the basic understanding of their deen, traditionally speaking, right? But we have to also be able to show, when needed, hey, intellectually, we can go toe to toe with any other type of ideology. Which one? Because let's say between the two, amongst the Christians and atheists, which one have you found the most antagonistic towards Muslims?
Oh boy, so I don't know, man. That's a tough call, because a lot of times, you start to see they team up, and they team up against Muslims and against Islam. It's like it's the world against Islam. I hate to sound so dramatic, but really you see that. It's like the Hindus team up with the atheists, right? The Christians team up with when do you see a Muslim and a Hindu teaming up against a Christian?
Never.
It's never. So, man, it's a hard call. I think it's equal, man. It's really, But I want to get back to the point that you were saying about, and that's what I mean about confidence, you see. Because some people can kind of watch some of my material, especially recently. I've been kind of aggressive and attacking certain people. And, people might be critical, but I think the individuals that I did deserve it. I don't just like a random Christian person that's just sincere or an atheist. If I'm just having a conversation, I'm not going to just like go off on the person. I don't really do that kind of stuff. But so I think that it is needed. I think you have different du'at, you have different people with, first of all, different specialties, different areas of interest, what they're interested in discussing, what they're good at discussing, different personalities, different approaches to the dawah. And I think that collectively, that's actually a good thing, because it shows a variety. Some person might like the way that I talk and the way that I handle a certain situation, and somebody else might not. But then there's another guy that other person, he didn't like what I said. He might like this other guy. You see? So it's different strokes for different folks, right? It's I think in the end, as you're saying, if it's within the realm of orthodoxy and nobody's really like, of course, everybody. See, the thing is, when you're doing dawah for such a long time, like say you've been doing dawah 15, 20 years and it's public. I mean, really not, because YouTube's probably only 10, 15 years old, but let's just say you've been a public figure that long, like you're bound to slip up and make a mistake. Like nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have to be, as a community of du'at, we have to be understanding of that. I think we have to do a better job of communicating with one another, trying to collaborate and work together towards a common good. I think that's something that definitely needs to be improved upon. And like there are people who, they're Muslim YouTubers or whatever they are. They have a certain style that I personally would never do, because either the content, I'm not interested in it, or just the approach is just not my style. It's just something different. But I don't, as long as I think that there's some good in it, that some Muslims are benefiting from it, and that they're not really doing anything out of the confines of Islam, I don't see any issue with it. So I agree with you on that point, bro. I think for obviously the disclaimer is for anyone who is doing dawah. Like, don't let your ego be your destruction, right? Like it's not about the personality. It's about the mission. It's not about like, you. It's about the greater purpose, right? And I think another thing, hopefully through this communication, there can be some type of coalescing where we can, be united and more organized. You know what I mean? So sometimes like, because of the fact there's no structure in place of like, hey, where do you go to if like we have a problem with each other? Something comes up, and we have this within our Deen, that we have methodology of how to deal with it. But I think that is something that if we can put some effort or some organization towards that, can help at least solve, fitna. So instead of like inwards, we can still keep looking outwards in terms of, growth. Right? The issue is, especially with COVID, a lot of the dawah has gone online now. And so
we didn't do, by the way, we've been doing dawah since 1999.
MashaAllah.
Right? COVID is the only... Because all our things was in person, like in the masjid, in universities, camps, conferences, things like that, all in person. COVID, then we're like, okay, we did our conferences online. We did. So this is the first time, so you're kind of like learning,
as you go along. The thing is, since COVID, it's like most of the dawah is online. And so even though people were already spread out, it's made it like it's sort of exacerbated the issue, because now everybody's spread out and the dawah's online. So you don't really have that connection. Like you and me are sitting here and it's our first time meeting, right? But it's almost like, I know it sounds bad, but it's almost like, well, if you never really met the person, you don't really have that connection with them. It's almost like, well, I could just, I don't want to say it that bad. Maybe throw the guy under the bus, or make a video and all this kind of stuff. It's I think being so distant from people and the dawah being primarily online, that has kind of made things worse in a sense.
That's a very salient point, because if you talk to many Muslims, they say we need to do unity. We have to. We should be unified. Why aren't we more unified on common causes that are affecting our community? So everyone understands that as a concept is something important that we should strive for. But why doesn't it happen? So, for example, like United Islam Awareness Week, it's like the 10th year. How did that come about? It's because we had initially a leadership camp where people from all over Canada, mostly Western Canada, could apply and come to it. So when these people came together in this camp and met each other, through meeting, learning, developing, and seeing each other, trust is established.
Yeah.
Hey, let's unify for a common cause to give a more cohesive, strong message during Islam Awareness Week. Because everyone's having their own Islam Awareness Week. So everyone's doing their own thing. Why don't we unite together and be able to share resources, be able to have a more powerful message? And so that's where it came about. But it came first with physically really meeting someone and establishing that brotherhood.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah. And I think it's been working. You know, you guys you're at the 10th year. So that's a success in its own right. And it's, I think it's growing and getting stronger. Alhamdulillah. That's what I've been seeing. That's what I've been hearing from people. So yeah, it's definitely that meeting people in person is definitely a different thing. Like even for example, I've been doing Dawah with a lot of people from the UK because they have a lot of people doing Dawah over there, very strong community. And I live in the US, but I've been doing Dawah with a lot of them online. And so I know them. I have that kind of relationship from being, you know, oh yeah, we did this podcast together, we did this, but it's online. But when I went to the UK, this is my opinion. I don't know. Maybe people watching this say, oh no, Jake. But when I went to the UK and I actually met them in person, and now that I come back, I feel different. You know what I mean? Like I have a different type of connection with them. You know, I got to know them a little bit better in person. And I think that is, for me anyway, and I think a lot of people, it's just a human element that it's important. I mean, we're not used to just like online and being so distant, you know? So, it is, I think, very important because then you humanize a person. You start to say, oh, you know, this is my brother. He's, you know, I went out to lunch with him or I did this or so. I think that part is missing. And I do, you know, without getting into details, I do think egos come into it at times because, you know, this thing that you mentioned about personalities, it's very interesting. On the one hand, let's be honest, a lot of Muslims online, they're drawn to certain personalities. Like they're following the Dawah in a sense, but for this person, they're tied to a specific personality. And the Muslim people who are doing YouTube and the Dawah, not saying they have a wrong intention, but they're not dumb. They're not stupid. They can recognize that. And so maybe, and this is the way that I'm thinking, they think that they need to engage in that in a certain sense in order to attract people to watch it so that in the end, they can get the message across that they really want to get to these people. You see what I'm saying? But what happens there is you get sort of stuck because you're trying to, you know, and I'm not trying to say that all the Muslim YouTubers are doing this, and I'm purposely not mentioning any names. It's almost as if you get stuck where you're trying to appeal to the audience, but are you doing it at the sake of something else that you shouldn't be doing?
Yes.
And how do you find that balance to where you can attract the people that you want without just being the boring person, like going up and like writing on a chalkboard or something, and at the same time keep it authentic to the Deen and all that kind of stuff, you know? So it's I'm not making excuses for people because people genuinely make mistakes. I've made mistakes online, even in a short amount of time. But it is difficult to try to find that balance where the reality is people like drama, people like big personalities, and they're attracted to that. How do you engage with that slightly, but trying to find a balance? You see what I mean? And it's difficult. I'm gonna be honest. It's very difficult.
My brutally honest opinion, you could take it from me as a guy who looks young, but I'm like, you know, much older. Is that it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the Salaf of this ummah, they said that there's nothing more difficult for me to purify than my intentions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me to keep constant than my intentions, because it keeps flipping.
Yeah.
And, you know, the statement of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu an, that Ar-Riya, you know, is like a black ant crawling on a black rock in the middle of a moonless night.
Wow.
That's how it just creeps into the heart. Now, you're talking about the Salaf who would hide many of their deeds. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And would like, in front of the people, they would really control the type of exposure that they would have.
Yeah.
The functionality and the way logistically that social media is built, it's completely built in the opposite way.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like, okay, you know, it's an extreme example, but it's like, you know, you're trying to concentrate to memorize Quran in a dance club.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just the whole environment and the functionality is not designed for you to be like a humble guy that's not receptive. Like, because, you know, the reward mechanism that it's designed on, it's very, very difficult. It's very, like, myself personally, like, I don't know if this is like how bad I sound saying this, but I really hate social media. Like, all my social media accounts, they're actually handled by my students with the exception of Twitter. And the only reason I do Twitter is mostly for news, because I look at it, instead of going to news websites, I do that. And then randomly, like, thoughts will come in my head, and I've been lately just posting it. But it's very difficult. It is super, super difficult, you know, to do that. So I think that's what makes it really difficult, because it's like the whole functionality, the purpose for why it was created and the mechanisms of it make it so hard. Because if it's we already know from like the warnings of nifaq and ar-riya and how difficult it is from people who are much righteous in these types of environments. Now you place yourself on something where, you know, the things that are the most, as you said, the most controversial or outlandish or whatever, and you have all these young minds, of course, like, they're being drawn in, wired into that, right? So it is difficult, man. It is like, I don't know because it's a reality we live in, but what is the paradigm shift? What is the revolution that needs to take place where we can still preserve the message and have a presence of that message in these different platforms while not losing ourselves in the process? Yeah,
it's very difficult, because at the same time, it's like, if you don't do it, somebody else will. Right. Yeah, and it's like, would you rather be a kafir who is outlandish and he's attracting Muslims and Muslims are watching his content? Yeah. And then, you have, like, you know, some guy that just comes up and he's just, you know, kind of all buttoned up and, you know, oh, hey guys, you know, I'm here today. And like, it's like, they're not going to be, the reality is, I know it sounds bad. But, you know, a lot of Muslims, like, a lot of these Muslim YouTubers do the okie doke on people, like, oh, religious, whatever. But it's just like, I'm sure you're aware of, like, people who also convert online, and it's just to get, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, you got or some complete hijab, frauds, you know, hijab tutorials, and now they got this following. Okay, now the hijab is off, and so there's a lot of these people. Yeah, I mean, those people, man. You know those I mean? the complete frauds. Yeah, they're out. I mean, yeah. But I think there are some people that do have a genuine intention. Yes, but they realize what they're saying, and they're trying to balance playing the game, so to speak, but at the same time trying to achieve their purpose, which I do think they have a genuine purpose of spreading the deen, empowering Muslims, making sure that Muslims feel secure in their faith, and at the same time also obviously trying to spread the message of Islam to non-Muslims. But it's like walking on a tightrope, really. It's a very difficult situation, because the way that social media is set up is like, you have to be outlandish to be seen for people to watch you. Yeah. But then if you're doing that constantly, are you really doing dawah? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And so should you just not engage in that whatsoever and then just let the chips where,
I think, what, my personal reflection on that is, if in real life, so that you got to balance the IRL. Like the IRL has to set the tone. So if you have a strong environment and like, and I think the only way you can kind of even really establish that is if you have like people on the truth, people of ilm, that you would listen to them. If they say, hey, you got to take this down. This is not appropriate. You should take this down. Even if it has 1 million views. But if they say to you this, you have like the humility to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I think you have to have a strong connection IRL. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, because it's like you're going, I think every time you step into that, it's danger. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think, you have to have people around you that you respect who can actually give you that advice, that nasiha. Yeah. And that's what I think. And I do have that with certain people. And, there's a certain collection of us du'at, and we have a WhatsApp group. And, without mentioning specific examples, people will say, like, dude, what were you thinking? That was kind of silly, take that down, or no, that's not. And I've said that to other people, and people have said it to me, like, oh, Jake, you should do it differently next time, or whatever. And so that's a good thing. If you're willing to take the advice, that's something important. Because in this, where you're walking the tightrope situation, sometimes you're gonna fall off. Like, you're not gonna be perfect. I don't think, when you're doing online dawah. I know it's kind of young because it's really hit the boom over the past 2 or 3 years. But the longer it goes on, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think there's really any easy solution. I think that people have to get a feel for it and make up their own minds, but they have to be, again, it goes back to being grounded with a community. And seeing that, especially as du'at and people in the dawah, that, okay, let's have husn dhan. We know that this brother, he has a genuine intention, right? And he's trying to do good. And so am I, inshallah. So let's try to work together towards that common goal. And when one guy slips up, we say, hey, brother, what you did, that was kind of out of line. Take that post down, or do whatever it may be, And I think, obviously, we want to try to avoid that. So you want to preempt it so that it doesn't get to that point. But if it does, if you're willing to take the advice from other people you respect, then okay, it's, kind of calms it down a little bit. But of course, you want to keep that in mind for the future, because you don't want to just keep boom, 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 like constantly making errors like that. So, and then also certain people have a different approach. Like me, I don't have it within me to go on camera and just like make a scene or be fake. But I do, when I have debates or when I talk with people, I have sometimes a certain aggressive mentality or way of speaking to people.
That's the nature of debates, whether it's online or in person, right? Like we saw Ahmadidat, right? Like, for example, back in the days, like, and I think that's debates have that nature to them. There's a performative part of debates.
Definitely. And the way that I view it, I'm the type of person where whatever you give, you're going to get back. Like, if you're very nice and you're humble and you're sincere and you just want to have a nice conversation, we could have a nice, great conversation, nothing, like no animosity, nothing. But if I can tell you're just here to try to like one up me, I'm going to play the game and I'm going to play it better than you. Like, that's how it is. And I think, in my personal opinion, some people who I know have that streak about them, and that I can tell this person is really not sincere, they're just there to bash Muslims and Islam or do this, I do think they need to be exposed. I think you need certain people, like you said before. We're not just going to take anything and just lay down and take anything from these people. No, we need certain people to stand up for them. I'm not saying cuss them down or anything like that, but stand up and say, look, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Really, this is kind of stupid. And then, you know, deal with them in a strong sense. Yeah. So, yeah.
Have you encountered a lot of like the ex-Muslim club?
Yeah, the ex-Muslim club. Yeah. They're very frustrating, you know, because and atheists, I find in general, like the ex-Muslim atheists specifically, and atheists in general, they think they're very clever. Like they're so full of themselves. They think they're so smart and they got science and they got this. Yeah. And religious people are just like a bunch of blind followers and they don't know what they're talking about. And they're so arrogant, but at the same time, when you talk to them, it's like they're so ignorant. They don't even understand what they're talking about. Yeah. So I find them to be some of the most frustrating people to deal with, because like, bro, you didn't even leave Islam. You left like a caricature of Islam. Like what you're describing, I would reject that too. It's ridiculous.
Do you think a lot of it is fueled for financial reasons?
Like YouTube, some people doing that stuff, they just want money. Like I've seen people openly admit it without mentioning names. But I think like the ex-Muslim phenomenon and becoming atheist and all this, I truly think that it's like it comes from like an inferiority complex. Like they think that Islam and Muslim is backwards because the West is this way and they've got superiority, and that's the way I see it, because I've literally seen on Clubhouse where, I'm not even kidding, somebody could be saying the exact same thing to an atheist like ex-Muslim in Arabic or another language, and then all of a sudden another person comes in, or maybe the same person switches to English and they say the exact same thing in English. It's like English is like a divine language right now. Like they hear it in English and like, oh, this guy's smart. Like just because you saw like some Hollywood movies in English or something. It's like, it's so bizarre, the inferiority complex that a lot of ex-Muslim atheists have, that they think, oh, the West is so great and they're so much superior that any way of life that they have or way that they go about doing things, the language, English, it's just, honestly nauseating. So I find them so frustrating to deal with, because it's like, oh my God, really? I have to go all the way back to the basics and be like, okay, here's where you went wrong, because what you rejected was not Islam. Here's what Islam actually teaches. Here are your fundamental presuppositions that don't really add up, that aren't making any sense. So I like talking to atheists, but sometimes it's like...
Sometimes I find, from my experience, and also when I've spoken to other du'at, they've shared this with me, that sometimes their intellectual reasons for not being Muslim is like more like a veneer.
Oh,
you know what I mean? There's like deeper seated emotional, like,
it's funny you say that, because I've been talking about that recently. You know, a program that I'm a part of, which is a part of Sapiens Institute, it's called the Lighthouse Mentoring Program, and people can sign up. It's like a one-on-one. And you can sign up if you could be ex-Muslim, you could be a Muslim with doubts, you could be a Muslim that's just looking for tips with Dawah and stuff like that. Anything. You sign up and it's one-on-one. So it's more authentic. It's one-on-one on Zoom, just me and you talking for 1 hour. Could be, I'm a volunteer, so I volunteer on there a few hours a week, and there's a bunch of other brothers doing it, mashallah. And my experience, bro, and I've been telling some brothers recently, is like, I don't think I'm exaggerating. At least 90% of the time, what you said is exactly right. The intellectual problems are really just a veneer. It's just a facade. It's just there's really, most of the time, a deep-seated psychological or emotional issue going on, or what I would say really from an Islamic perspective, a spiritual issue. And when you remove those intellectual sort of obstacles, you realize those are just like kind of like cobwebs in the way. When you clear it out, you see really there's something deeper going on. I'll give you one example. I'm not obviously mentioning names, but from the Lighthouse program. And I don't want to bring this up as a negative thing because there's a lot of good things going on with the program. So, I recommend people who are having issues to check it out. But it's one guy who comes on and he's like, all right, I'm a Muslim. Brother Jake, I want to ask you about this scientific theory, right? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Okay, boom, my answer. Okay, how about this? Second scientific theory. Okay. Third scientific theory. Okay. And then he's going on to the next point. This scientific theory, boom, boom. And I just stopped for a second. I said, brother, is there something deeper going on? And because he was acting like, oh, he's a Muslim and, he just had some question about this. Because I could tell it's almost as if he was trying to move to the next doubt or the next like question before really even listening or hearing what I'm saying with the other one. It's like, wait, hold on a second. So I said, is there something deeper going on? And he paused and he said, yeah, there is. I said, what is it? He said, not sure if God exists. I said, subhanAllah, you're asking about all these different wild, strange scientific theories and you don't even know if God exists. Like that's Tawheed. That's the foundation of Islam. Of course, you're going to be way out of whack if you don't have that in order. Yeah. So I said, listen, I'm not going to answer another question about a scientific theory. This was like at the halfway mark. So 30 minutes, I've already been dealing with this stuff. I said, in the last 30 minutes, I'm going to prove to you that God does exist. Right? So he turns around and I think he was kind of shook because I was very straightforward with him. And he said, okay. So I do it. I go through this different things. And by the end of it, he goes, all right, Jake, yeah, I believe that God does exist. You presented a very strong case. I agree with everything you say. Okay, alhamdulillah. Next week, because I had the same time slot, I recognize the name because I can see on the schedule. Oh, okay, this guy's back. Alhamdulillah, let's see what he's going to come up. Oh. So he comes back on. He says, all right, Jake, remember? Yeah, I remember you, brother. Well, everything you said, this is what he tells me, everything you said to me makes complete sense. I don't have any argument against you. But how about this? I'm starting to doubt my own reasoning faculties. I said, okay, subhanAllah. So now I start going into like radical skepticism. I'm saying, okay, how far do you want to take this, bro? How far do you really want to take this? I'm saying, you know what? Maybe you're not even on this phone call right now. The whole thing's an illusion. How do you know that that's not the truth? How do you know that that's not the reality? So I start showing him the absurdity of like where he's going. And he just kept budging. And I said, look, you've got no argument against it. You come back a week later and this is what you're doing. I started kind of being harsher with him. I said, let me tell you something, brother. You don't want to believe in God. I told him just like that. And he said, oh, no, yes, I do. Of course I do. I said, no, you don't. You don't. It's not an intellectual problem because you presented it as an intellectual problem. When I solved the intellectual problem, your answer to it is throw the intellect out. Now I'm doubting my own reasoning. So now you're like stuck in this twilight zone, like vicious circle. Like you might be in the Matrix. Who knows? So what that showed me, and this is not just one case, this is I can go through several examples like this, where I said, listen, brother, I'm telling you right now, you don't want to believe in God. I don't care if you don't like how it sounds, but this is I said, I'm diagnosing you. This is my diagnosis. Yeah. And he kind of got like shaken up a bit. And, I kept talking to him and then, the session eventually ended. But, it's just one example where a lot of times, bro, it's presented as an intellectual problem, but then really there's something deeper going on. And when we try to solve that, it's like you go left, you go this crazy route. And it's not only that, sometimes it's presented as an intellectual problem, but you find out, well, no, it's actually an emotional problem, or maybe could be genuine, some trauma. Maybe you had a bad experience with the Muslims, or your parents, or something bad happened, some very traumatic experience happened, and this is the real issue. You're thinking, oh, why would God let this happen to me? Right? Like some kind of situation like that, rather than, oh, here's this argument here, or this, you know what I mean? So 100%, like almost all the time that I deal with people who doubt the faith, ex-Muslims, so-called skeptics, most of the time it's not intellectual at all. It's a psycho-spiritual
You want to hear
thing.
something interesting?
Yeah, inshallah.
There's did you go to Vancouver yet?
No, not yet. Yeah.
So in Vancouver, there's a big homeless population and people who are, they have substance abuse and addiction issues. So there is he's a very famous doctor in Canada, and he treated for many years addicts in that area, right? So there's I believe it's East Hastings, right? Like so East Hastings is an area downtown Vancouver. He worked at the Portland Hotel, so basically it's like the last stop for all these addicts that can't go anywhere else.
Wow.
So I went through his book, and he talks about like some of the characteristic traits of these addicts, right? And something it's interesting. One of the things that he notes, because he actually addresses this in his treatment recommendation for a lot of these addicts, and what he found is many of these people who are like perpetually addicted, and they're just going back in that cycle over and over again. Most of them, he would describe them as being atheist or like, not spiritual, or their concept of God is of like a person who's mean and vindictive.
Wow.
And like, I could go into a deep dive because I'm taking it from like a spiritual and physiological thing of the way the brain functions.
Yeah.
So his treatment recommendation, what he says is that for you to be able to heal as a human being, is you have to be spiritual. You have to get spiritual. Yeah. He said because it just seems like it's common, like having an atheistic or non-spiritual framework of your existence actually causes the person and it's usually also a result of trauma. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a person who is who suffered trauma is more prone to addiction, right? And what's interesting too is that the area of the brain that we can see that underdevelops when a person has trauma is the forebrain. So your judgment center, and this is also where is your inhibitory process in your brain, right? So it kind of stops you from doing things that are inappropriate or destructive to yourself, right? That's one of the actually main functions or neurotransmitters in the brain, is actually to prevent you from it's not like a stimulant, it's actually the prevention. So people who've been traumatized actually have this underdeveloped. So my theory actually is, I don't know if, in the future this could be some kind of clinical study. You could probably map out the people's brains, right, who are atheists, who don't believe in God, and people who do believe in God, and there's probably a history of like some type of trauma that's associated as well with that.
Really? Yeah. That's
and if we go to the hadith of our Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well, and there's ayah in the Quran about that you will be grabbed by your lying sinful forelock, right? Which is also another important kind of dimension to this, because that is your judgment center.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The relation of the brain and all this kind of stuff. It is, and even like secular psychologists and people who study these issues, they say like even with coping with the loss of a loved one or going through very like serious traumatic issues, even if they don't believe, like the people who are doing these studies, that God actually exists, they have to admit that there is a functional, practical element to the belief in God and dealing with trauma or tough situations in life.
Yeah.
There's just the studies absolutely show that this is true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can agree with you. I'm not surprised at all. And, some people, like, even, I think Jordan Peterson is probably a good example where his description or how he explains God, anyway, my interpretation of him, because he's a pragmatist about truth. He's basically like, truth is that which works. So if it produces a good result, then it's true in that sense, even if it doesn't necessarily correspond to like reality in a certain way. And so his way of, that's why he says, well, I act as if I believe in God, and most people do anyway. Why? Because from a analytic perspective, he sees the utility in it and the fact that it works. Now, obviously, we don't think that's just a coincidence. We obviously believe that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. But nevertheless, even these people who are skeptics, and I'm not just trying to pick on Jordan Peterson, but in general, from a psychological point of view, they cannot deny the utility in that idea. Now, does that necessarily make it true? Not necessarily. All right, I wouldn't argue for that strongly, but I would say, look, it should be taken seriously in some sense, especially in the broader scope of the whole discussion of God's existence and everything. Can be considered when you couple it with other evidences, right?
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think it's undeniable, really, at this point that even the secular psychologists have had to really admit it, and to the point where, one of the other speakers, I actually saw his talk because we were in the city at the same time, and he did one on mental health, and he was saying, he was basically saying that CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, even the secularists have noticed that when you add a religious element to it, even if the technique is the same, but you give it, quote unquote, like a religious flavor to it, it is much more effective as a therapy for that person. You see what I mean? Like, you could give the same technique of CBT, but have it coming, and this is, what he was explaining. I haven't looked into it in detail, but he's basically saying, he's got you got the CBT, but then you add the Islamic element to it in the sense that the technique is the same, but the information may not be exactly the same. Like, you mentioned the Prophet, peace be upon him, or you mention Allah, and you reference something in the Deen that is, the objective is the same, but of course, because that person is a Muslim, it has a much greater effect when it has that Islamic content in it. And even what he's saying is, the research shows even the secularists have admitted this, that CBT with the addition of the religious aspect is actually way much more effective, So, it's something that I think is extremely interesting.
Like, especially I think when you have, like, when people have these they come to you with these doubts or these types of questions, and sometimes what I like to do is just say, okay, let's talk about it, let's just get to know each other.
Exactly.
And then when you kind of get to know them, and through that conversation, that's sometimes when you can find out what's really the issue, what's really going on. You know what I mean? There's this one brother that a lot of doubts, questioning a lot of things, like think common sense stuff, or having this double standard with Islam. It's like, how come Islam came in, uprooted so many people's culture? I'm like, well, what about the empire before that? It modified that culture, and we see Islam actually has many cultures, right? And he didn't even know what Orientalism was, right? So all these different things, and then I just started talking to him about other things, and I found out that he was abused when he was younger, right? And so that was actually the real cause of all his kind of doubts and his conceptions and all of that stuff, right? So it's I think because it's so powerful, like the concept and the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so powerful. that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has implanted in human beings, that there has to be something very significant, and I think it's a lot of times it is that emotional reason. There's some kind of psychological, emotional reason that it's this trauma or something that they've endured. But the thing is, to heal that too, you go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a spiritual way, because you can actually, again, there is neuroplasticity even within your brain. So there can be changes and healing that can occur, within your brain, whatever trauma that
and we're not trying to belittle it, because these are real things that happen. And so we're just saying that at a certain point, and of course, maybe if you're just meeting the person, they're not comfortable with you. Well, it's no surprise that they're putting on this veneer, right? And they themselves many times may not even notice what they're doing. It's like it's a coping method, or a mechanism. And so you have to try to remove that stuff and obviously treat it delicately. Like, you're not trying to just smash the guy down or anything. And to where you get to that point, say, okay, I see what's going on. I'm not trying to belittle it. Let's see if we can work on it. Let's see if we can provide a solution from it within Islam that can answer and help to try to deal with some of these issues. And I think when you do it that way, of course, it's never 100%, but I think it can be effective and very beneficial. And
I think one of the also evidences I see that people, when they do get drawn to Islam, is when they're able to, a lot of people accept Islam when they observe, Muslims. It was a very welcoming group. You know what I mean? So they're kind of their experience or their interaction. So there's again that emotional connection or that pull or whatever, for that. So, but no, it's one of those things again that I think as of now we're kind of hopefully getting out of the post-COVID era. What do you think? They're going to drop another remix? And
I don't know, man.
Another variant.
I hope we're getting towards the end, man. I hope it's like we're approaching the finish line.
The only thing more than COVID variants are, I think, Fast and Furious movies. Right? Like,
exactly.
There's like another one, So, but I think more we have like, I think these type of in-person, type of gatherings, and even the Dawah events. It has a pretty significant, I think, effect that we sometimes miss out that dimension on the online thing.
You do. Like, even I've done 3 talks here so far. At every talk, I've had, and I'm a nobody. I have a relatively small YouTube channel, right? But of the 3 talks, I've had at least one person, and many times more than one person, come up to me, a Muslim, and say, "Oh, Brother Jake, I actually knew about you a year ago or this many months ago before we even knew you were coming. And when I saw you were coming, I came just to see you. And boom, you know that video you made? Yeah, I like that. That was good. And that helped me with this, blah, blah, blah." And that's why I'm doing it. And see, when you do the dawah on the actual ground, and you see that, you say, okay, maybe what I'm doing is actually effective, because now that's coming from online, but then it's like a 2-way direction. They influence each other. Okay, now, but if I didn't come here, I didn't know about those people. I'm thinking, who knows about me in Fort McMurray? I don't even know where that is.
Did you even know what Fort McMurray?
I didn't even know what it was. People are watching me. I don't know who you are. But so. And one guy was actually in Fort McMurray, was a non-Muslim guy, Christian guy, came and he was like, "Yeah, brother, I was watching you, and I like your stuff." And he seems really close to Islam, mashallah. And so that to me was very beneficial, because I'm saying, wait, I'm going to like some of these smaller towns in Canada that I never even been in Canada. I've got a relatively small YouTube channel, and somehow in a gathering of like, I don't know, however many 100 people, there's people there that are watching me and somehow getting benefit from it. Well, alhamdulillah, that means at least now I get that feedback that, well, I'm doing something good at least, you know, it's helping somebody online, but you don't really see that as much online, or you do, like, you might see a comment where it's like, okay, you know, on the Life Haqq channel, you know, somebody comments and is like, oh yeah, bro, good video or what, but it doesn't have the same feel like when the person comes up to you in person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's, I think right now the Dawah online is like, whether we like it or not, it's there, and I think it's there to stay. Yeah. But I think you got to try to find a way to have them influence each other, to have an arrow going between the real life affecting the online and the online affecting the real life, back and forth, and you see that connection, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and there's a great reward, like, for the physical meeting of each other, right? Like the hadith, where, you know, a man is traveling and the angel, you know, comes in the form of a man in the middle, and he says, where are you going? He says, I'm going to go visit, you know, my brother.
Yeah.
And he said, does he owe you something? Like, he has some kind of business? He says, no, I'm going because I love him for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says that, you know, your Lord loves you, you know, just as you love him for his sake. You know?
Alhamdulillah.
So, you know, that's just traveling, just hubbik fillah. Like, I love you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so, like, I think, you know, more we get to revive these traditions, right? Even traveling to seek ilm. You know, sometimes it's like, you could maybe learn this thing online, but it's a different approach. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Person,
like,
it's a different.
Like one of my shayukh, he's like, oh, I can just give you this ijaza for this collection of hadith. Like, I can just do it over the phone for you. I said, no, I'm gonna come travel to you. I'm gonna come to you. This is not appropriate. You know what I mean? You know, that'll be too easy for me. So then I went. I spent the time with him, learned that, you know, with him in person, and then I came back. You know what I mean? So,
alhamdulillah.
So reviving, you know, it's the, you know, merging of the tradition and you know, the modern mechanisms. You know,
exactly.
So. But, you know, I want to thank you. It's late. We could probably be talking all night, but I can see, you know, I mean, you're running out of steam. So
it's been good, bro. Alhamdulillah.
So you get some rest, because there's still a lot of the tour left to go, and then we'll inshallah reconnect anyways, you know, a couple of days, and, you know, appreciate, you know, the time, effort, you know, getting to meet you in person as well. Alhamdulillah. And we have like an outro, a tagline. So I'll say it once, and then maybe you can. Everyone's had trouble with it, but I know you do the spoken word poetry. So I think you might be able. You could be the only one who could get it down on the first time. So
I'll try.
Yeah. So this is the outro, the tagline that we have at the end of the podcast. We live by the haqq, we die by the haqq. Just when you think life is stuck, tune into Life Haqq. You get that?
Okay, we live by the haqq, we die by the haqq.
Yeah. Just when you
think life
is
stuck,
tune in.
Okay, tune into the haqq.
To Life Haqq.
Oh, to Life Haqq. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. So you think you can get that all at once?
Oh, bro. Okay, so you live by the haqq, you die by the haqq.
Yeah.
Just when you think life is stuck, tune into Life Haqq.
There you go. You got it.
Alhamdulillah.
That's how we do it. All right.
And that's all, even after a long day of me being tired.
Yeah, so. There you go.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Jazakumullahu Khairan.